Hey, welcome to the stream and to the video. Nice. See, I told you I'd nail it. Today, we're going to do another tier list to go along with the other two that if you haven't seen, go watch them first. On all of the enemies this time, look at them all. In Hollow Knight. Now, as you may know, I'm Hill. I have over 1,000 hours of no-hit experience in Hollow Knight, so therefore, the basis of the tier list is going to be how difficult the enemies are to deal with, kind of framed around a no-hit run. So they may be enemies that are more difficult if you weren't thinking about trying not to get hit by them, and maybe some enemies that are a little bit less difficult to deal with when you know a strat for getting rid of them easily, if that makes sense. But anyway, stick around, like, subscribe, do all that stuff. You genuinely don't have any idea how much it helps, especially if this video is like a day old. If you've watched this and you haven't commented and it's the same day I released it, I mean, why do you hate me? I'm coming off strong. Okay, let's get cracking. You might notice me replying to chat as well. I am streaming this live. Come join us. Twitch.tv/Hill1030. That's all of that out of the way. Let's get cracking. Now, first up, Crawlage. You're going to notice I have ordered these in the order it's going to follow this little handy-dandy image as well. They're kind of in the order that you would normally encounter them in game. So you can see we've got like Crossroads stuff, we're going to Green Path stuff, and then down to the DLC enemies and the Colosseum enemies out at the end, which I think is a pretty good way of doing it. Starting us off, Crawlid. I mean, it's barely... It damages you, so it's not quite passive. But I wouldn't exactly say it's threatening. Vengeful Eyes. I would say it's a good bench line. This is actually quite a good bench line already for like what the categories are going to be. So simple is like you kind of have to think about it or like at least acknowledge that it's there. Non-threat is like you're zipping past it without too much thought. And then it gets in order of difficulty higher as you go up through the tiers. That is a very good idea, Grumbleina. Zote isn't here. The Zotelings are, but Zote himself isn't. He's classified as a boss. I categorized him wrong. When we did the bosses tier list, Zote was in that. And I was really confused why he was in because I couldn't remember fighting him. Because he's in the Colosseum, which is why he's in there. He can't actually hit you, but I think I put him like third bottom above like Massive Moss Charger and Vengefly King. I think I then put Zote next, which was very stupid of me. I think Gruzzers are kind of around the same. Are they a non-threat? Are they even outside of... Do they exist? Oh yeah, they're in the Crossroads, aren't they, flying around? Yeah, okay. If this to the left is the top end of the category and to the right is the bottom end, then I think that's in the right order. Tick-ticks and these are the same. Except they go round. They can go like upside down and they can't, I think. That's right. Crawlid and Tick-ticks. I don't know. Okay, Aspid Hunters, I think, are the first enemies you really have to think about. There's the little, like, arena, isn't there? At the beginning of the game. There are separate entries for the infected versions as we get down here, which are considerably more difficult. So, yeah, we'll get to those. Yeah, I think Aspids are a good, like, middle-of-the-road benchmark. Although, once we start putting other enemies in, these might get shifted down a bit. I think Aspid Mothers are probably not too difficult. The same with their... I actually think their spawns are more difficult to deal with just because they're quicker. Because that's its attack, really. This just floats about. We do have, hang on, how many? I haven't been going through them either, which is bad form. I'll put all this work together. There we go. Does it still work if I'm clicked off? Yes. What was I saying? I'm lost now completely. Yeah, the hatchlings are the attack, right? These don't attack, so you could probably put these even further down. It's theirs that's the threat. Into the husks. Now, there's a lot of very similar ones here. This is the guy that just kind of runs at you, which I think are the most easy to deal with ones. These are the headbutt guys. That's the jumpy dude. These are the, like, walk and then headbutt. And then the shield dudes are probably the hardest. Something like that. These tiers are going to really fill up quickly. Big dude. Where is he? There we go. Big dude's easily the hardest. Just don't fight it until, I guess, once you've got spells and dash and stuff, it's a lot easier to remember. Weird that Entombed Husk is next. Hey man, don't put links in randomly. Thank you. Do I even have any mods in chat? Because I don't think I can delete that. Let's see. I don't know if I can. There we go. Yeah, please don't randomly post links in chat. We have a Discord channel specific. It's the rules, dude. Oh, hey, that didn't work. That's embarrassing. Did that work? No, it didn't. God's sake. What's the command? Anyway, whichever. Don't post links in chat. Next in there. I think maybe a bit easier than them because they don't move very quick. These guys, can they even damage you? I don't think so. Why is Menderbug? Why is Menderbug here? Poor thing. He's never hurt a soul. Yeah, we're gonna blitz through these early ones. I think the Baldurs are probably around. You're way too high. Get down there. Yeah, get like right down there. Why did I just put that Baldur there? Yeah, that seems good. And then the Elder Baldur, I think, is up here as well because he's annoying. Probably more annoying than that guy. Yeah, that feels good to me. Into Green Path, these guys, other than jumping up at the ground at you, don't really pose any of a threat. The flying ones, exactly the same. These mossy boys, however, probably like an upgrade from the husks in Crossroads. Yeah, and the ones that go poof are probably a bit more so than that. Now, what are these called? 4 liters. These are a proper pain. Are they the first one to like just track into threatening? Just because you really have to know where they are. But then in a standard, in a standard no hit, there's not a great deal of places that you'll deal with it, I don't think. Yeah, Queen's Gardens. Queen's Gardens definitely, especially when you especially when you do the bit where you've got to like go down and around to hit the switch. You know, where there's like the little tunnel bit after the arena. Yeah, I think full eaters are a good benchmark for what is and isn't threatening, especially in Queen's Gardens. You're absolutely right. I think a good thing to take into consideration is where the enemies are. So for a lot of them, they're probably not that threatening in isolation, but if they're in the game in groups, for example, squids, on their own, dead easy to deal with. However, the arena that they're in Queen's Gardens, where you get Howling Raids, is a difficult arena if you don't have a specific strat to take care of it. I wouldn't say threateningly bad, because it's the enemy. This is I think where the distinction comes in. So, is it easier to kill this thing than it is to kill this thing? Yes. Are you more likely to get damaged by one of these in the game than you are one of these? I would say that you are more likely to get damaged by one of them. I think that's where the distinction for how threatening these enemies are, or how I'm going to rank them anyway. But like, so for example, squids, super easy to kill, but because of that arena, they're not super simple to deal with. That's what I think. Maybe a bit further down than where I've put them. Yeah, good. This is good because this means that you guys in the comments can absolutely disagree with me and be like, you are mental. You're struggling with the flowers? What kind of idiot are you? Yes, Livy. It's that's the angle that I'm coming from to judge them. Is how easily can you deal with them without taking damage? So a good example of that is these DVD logo boys. They're not that difficult to kill, but it's not easy to deal with them. I would probably say they're up here. Definitely more difficult than those aspids, because these are the ones, the little obbles, these are, that shoot the 4 little spits. Harder to deal with than squits. Yes. Easier than a Balder. I think that's a good place for them. Some of this may get shifted down a bit as we go through, because there are some very, very tough enemies in this. Okay, this plant thing. What's the name of this? Gulka. It's the one that shoots the little puffy balls. It's kind of near Massive Moss Charger. Not that difficult to deal with. As long as you're moving through the area quickly, yeah, you won't even notice them, I don't think. I reckon that's down here somewhere. And you tend not to go to that area of green path. This is the birds. The little birds that you farm the essence from if you're doing low percent. Obviously, can't get damaged by those. Moss chargers. I think there's one in particular. I reckon there, the top end of Simple. Yeah. There's one in particular just outside of Hornet that it's easy to get hit by. Yeah, I feel okay about that. There's a lot of interesting enemies to talk about, so I am trying to rifle through the lesser interesting ones as much as possible. I think the first really challenging enemy is the Moss Knights. Specifically, again, just before you get to Hornet, there's that little section where there's quite a lot of geo. I think off the top of my head, I think it's about 160 to 180 geo, something around there. And there is 2 of these things, and you sort of drop down into the little area where they are, and you can't get back out where you drop in. The only way to get out is to go all the way over to the right and up. And I think, again, because of where they are located and the fact there's 2 of them, that can make them, if you don't have specific ways of dealing with them, and even if you do, it's super easy to get hit. And I think the difficult enemies in general, like for casual play, because they've got defense, they've got short range attacks, and they've got long range attacks. And the long range attacks that they have are like anti-air attacks as well. So yeah, I think that's the first really difficult enemy that you face in the game. It's the Moss Knights. These guys, I don't know what to say about these. I can't remember ever fighting them, because this one is they're called Mossy Vagabonds. It's the one that's like a preacher or something, and then they all get infected once you've done Broken Vessel. But I don't think I've ever fought them, so I can't really place these. So I'll leave them around here, just from best estimate. A couple of interesting ones: the Durandus and Durandars, which are the I guess you could say they're passive. They're the hard-shelled, you can pogo off them to get past the acid, and then the ones that you sort of crystal dash past to get to Geo to go get Great Slash. I think it's a difficult one to place because the enemies themselves aren't necessarily difficult, but getting past them, especially with this set, is. And if you're not good at pogoing, if you're not used to it, that guy can be as well. But I don't know if we can classify them as anything other than passive, because they don't necessarily damage you. So I'm not sure. I'm gonna put them in passive, but I think this could be up in caution, and this would probably be simple. If I was going to place them, that's where I'd put them. Let me know what you think. These are the guys that float about in the background. Alubas. We're into Fog Canyon now. Similar sort of thing, I think, with these. They're passive, but they're in blocks. I'm going to put them in simple. I think these are more designed to be in the way than these guys are. And they do move, I think, very, very slightly. These ones, I think, for a casual player, are really difficult to deal with. Because there are places that you do need to deal with them. And especially if you're doing what almost everybody does on a first playthrough, which is never ever using the nail. Never using spells, sorry, and only using the nail. It's the big jellyfish explodey chase you guys. Then, yeah, I think. And if we think about all the way forward in fighting Umu in Godhome, these can be a real pain to wrangle into position. There are some good strats, though, for doing it right. Little mushroom boys that crawl along the floor. The Ambloons, I think they're called. I think these are fairly simply down here. They're a variant of your crawling tick type thing. They just walk across the ground. They don't target you or anything. Again, with mushroomy boys, these kind of just float around as well. Not too difficult to avoid. That might be a little higher. I would probably put the ones that spit at you into simple. Just don't hang around underneath them. Probably around... yeah, we're down here. Similar to a Vengefly, like that. Now, this guy. So this is the Sporg. It's got a great name. This is the one that shoots explodey balls at you, and I think equally, in fact, more so than the full trap. That's what it's called. I literally said the name of it earlier. Full Eater. There we go. It's tricky. It is tricky to deal with. Very easy to get exploded. These guys are really weird. When I was completing the Hunter's Journal, they're like the explodey, husky, mushroomy, fungal waste guys. It took me the longest because it's like there's a crazy amount of... How much is it? You've got to kill 10 of them to complete the Hunter's Journal entry. And there's like 2 in the game. Maybe there might be 3. So it took me ages to track them down. They're like, I think they create a spore cloud as an attack, and I think they explode on death as well. But I do think they're a non-threat just because you very rarely go anywhere near them, and you don't need to get... Well, I'll put them in simple because of casual players, but you very rarely need to deal with them in no-hit runs. This is little shroom boys that are passive. These are the Owen Wilsons, which I think are actually quite difficult. I think they're more difficult than these guys to get past because they're quick and they're unpredictable, and they sound like Owen Wilson, which makes them untrustworthy. Shroomal Ogre is a difficult... I think that's probably more... I've definitely lost runs. In fact, I'm going to put them up here. I've definitely lost runs to the arena with the 2 of them in, which is the main place that you're going to deal with them. The other place is at the bottom of Fungal Core, where there's... I think it's one of these above... Is it one of these? Either one of these or one of these boys that are above, and you're fighting a couple of mushroom ogres. That's not easy either. So I feel justified putting that up here. Mantis boys, the little flying one first. He's definitely up here. More threatening than the obble. Probably around there. Yep. And these are not Petras, what are these called? They're like warriors, Mantis warriors. You've got to be careful dealing with those as well. So I reckon around there. There's a gulf here, I feel. Like there's a big gap between the Elder Balder and the obble. So I have a feeling we're going to get a lot of stuff in here. Now, speaking of which, the sentries in the City of Tears, starting with the standard sort of walking one. Super easy to get hit by these guys. Really easy. They've got a decent amount of health, considering you won't have any nail upgrades when you fight them. They have a non-significant, a not insignificant range, I should say. They can attack upwards and both directions. I think they're... Simple seems unfair. I think they're more difficult to deal with than the flying mantises. Maybe not the warriors. The big guys, however, you really need to be careful how you go about them, because their range is crazy and they're quick. They can charge. They've got like 3 or 4 different attacks. I've found a way to deal with them by baiting out the charge attack and jumping over, but if you don't do that, it's tricky to deal with them, as is not so much the flying swordsman, although he's a lot more difficult than the standard walking sentry. However, the pike guys, I think, are arguably our first run killer, because they, in fact, yeah, I'm putting them up here. This is the quintessential, like, not difficult to kill casually, but avoiding them in a no-hit run is really, really difficult, especially the screen just to the left of where the bench is in City of Tears, the one that Quirrell's sat next to, just down from the is it City Storeroom Stag Station? There's that like Crossroads-esque screen with all the platforms and a few of these guys on it. I have lost a lot of runs on that screen, and it's down to these pike throwing swoopy boys. Yeah, not a fan of those guys. We've got a couple of really difficult ones here as well, actually, because one of my least favorite enemies in the game are these two. I'm going to put these right up. The ground ones and the flying ones, easy to kill, but my goodness, a pain to deal with, an absolute pain. Soul Sanctum is, in fact, get up there as well. Soul Sanctum as a whole is super tough. It's really, really tough when you're doing no-hit runs. Very tough, but the issue is there's some really good stuff in there. The Soul Twister Charm, Spell Twister Charm, sorry, is super, super useful. In fact, I would say I'd probably do that. I hate these things. Teleporting, shooting, heat-seeking blobs at you. And I've lost... Do I think I've lost more runs to this than anything else? To any one thing? Probably. It's probably a tie... Just that alone. Maybe not the floor one. No, actually, yeah. I think that's right. For being in the Soul Warrior fight, for sprouting out the ground when you can't see it, and for teleporting, and getting caught out by the... I would go as far to say as I think we already have the top 3 worst enemies in the game in the list. Yeah, I honestly do. I don't think anything... There's one. There is one that springs to mind that's worse than these 3. See if you can guess what it is before we get to it. And I don't think it is going to be what you think it is. Moving on from the worst place in the game. These husks, so there's 3 similar ones that are on right side city. This guy is the one that sort of, he like takes a step forward and does 3 or 4 swings at you with his hands. I think is the worst of them. Especially in the bottom of where the Watcher's Spire is. So I'm going to leave him down there. Particularly for when you're trying to get Soul to kill the big sentry husk on the left. Been hit by him before. The cowardly ones, I would probably keep at the top end of simple. I think it's random which way they run. They all look like they're sucking on pacifiers. They do. I've never noticed that before. But yeah, they do. They look like they've got we call it a dummy in England. They look like I've got a dummy in the mouth. I think it's random which way these run. I haven't tested it to great length, but I need worrying about. And then these guys would probably be, because they can jump. Maybe a little bit higher. Yeah, somewhere around there is good. Gorgeous Husk. Actually, not trivial. Less so than these guys. Somewhere around here. Especially if you are trying to kill it quickly with the speedrun strat where you sort of hit it up. You like go under it as it jumps. Nail up. Go to the other side and then nail and fireball to send it across the screen and repeat that. It's very easy to... Maybe not super easy. Let's go down here somewhere. But definitely not trivial. Sentry husks are, if you need to kill them, real pain. We're definitely up here. There-ish. That one that's in, I mentioned it before, the one that's in Watcher's Spire. So just as you come up, you have to go like up past the two sentries and round and down to the left where the bench is, just up on the left, and you drop down and there's one of these in a little chamber. That's really difficult to deal with, to the point where I know I did it in my any percent run and I do it in my other no-hit runs as well, actually. You can kill this guy through the wall using either Shade Soul or Abyss Shriek, and it is, in my opinion, worth doing the whole of the Soul Warrior fight, which is not easy, just to be able to kill that guy through the wall, and that is the only reason. So I think that speaks to how difficult this thing is. But because you can kill it through the wall, in the place where it is most... This is a good point, actually. Because you can kill it through the wall in the place that it's most threatening, does that reduce its threat level because of how easy you can deal with it? Because there isn't anywhere else in the game that you really have to deal with these guys. Especially compared to the bigger husk. But just by the fact that you have to go out of your way to avoid it, does that mean that the threat level's higher? Interesting. I'm going to leave him here for now, but I don't know how good I feel about that. Okay. Okay, the bell flies. Difficult one to place. I think it's really, really easy to get hit by these. I'm not sure where to put these. Definitely a threat, and they're in a lot of places, and if you go to a place you don't know it's there, that scream, just instant panic. Are they worse than the Moss Knights? Probably not. Are they worse than the Ogres? Probably. Yeah. High, I think. Upside Downy boys. These are the things in waterways that they walk, and then if you hit them, they flip upside down and jump. Definitely not easy to deal with. Definitely not. I think we're looking around here. Like I said, that gulf. There's a gulf here where things get a lot more difficult, a lot quicker. This guy's too high, I think. I'll leave him for now. Yeah, I don't like these things. A lot of the things in the waterways I don't like. That picture, though. That one. That is not what you think it is. Alright? Don't ban me, YouTube. It's these expandy boys. I think, you know, you've got to watch out for. But in the grand scheme of things, you're not going to have too much difficulty with them. Pretty sure you can't get hit by the things that give you the rancid eggs. So we'll pop them there and skip over them. Now, we are getting into some interesting guys. These are horrible. These are absolutely horrible. I'm putting them at the top end of threatening. Not quite run killing, just because they're quite easy to kill. but not good for getting around the waterways. The all skills run has to deal with these a fair amount, and it's not pleasant. Or if you're doing like a no skip true ending run, which I've seen a few people do before, these guys are awful. They take ages to kill because you've got to kill them in 3 parts. Each individual part of them is difficult to deal with, and the location that they're in is horrible. Getting to Fluke Mom is awful. I think these are one of the worst enemies in the game. I really do. They're awful things. They'd be higher if they were in more runs. Yeah, the sounds as well, I agree. If they were in more runs, they'd probably be higher, because I guarantee I would have lost runs to them. But not cool. I don't like waterways. Now, a few Crystal Peak enemies. Maybe there's 2 above these. Interesting. So, these are the ones that stop when you're nearby and bunker up. Killing them isn't necessarily difficult. However, if you don't know where they are, I think it's easy to take damage to them. And they can be very difficult to deal with as well because of how they react. So if you don't hit them quick enough with a nail, or you don't have like reach on your nail, like Mark of Pride or something, they can be difficult to get a hold of. There's one that's a pain. Right where the shopkeeper's key is, in the middle of Crystal Peak. There's one just on the wall there. There's a couple when you're dropping down to where Crystal Dash is as well. So I think that's a little bit too high. I'm going to go around here, because you have to have strats for dealing with them. These guys are pretty much a non-event. Just don't get too close. And you'll be fine. You can actually hit them from behind if you up slash as well. If you're close enough and you up slash, you can hit their ass. Lesser known fact. Now then. Is this guy a run killer? Yes. I always called these Crystal Aspids. That's not what they're called. They're called Crystal Hunters. I think casually these are bad. These are, dare I say, worse than Primal Aspids. One of my least favourite enemies casually, for certain. And they're in the run killer category because the place that you go, again, it's where they actually exist in the game world. When you go get Descending Dark, the upgrade for Desolate Dive, if you don't have Shade Soul, which if you go into Crystal Peak for the first time, you probably don't have. So say you've gone to get Crystal Heart to get Crystal Dash, and then you've gone straight down to where you would go to get Dream Nail, and you go across to where the D-Dark upgrade is, you don't have Shade Soul. If you don't run, you don't have Shade Soul. Casually, you probably don't as well, because you would have had to, in fact, you definitely won't, because you would have had to go get the Shopkeeper's Key from Crystal Peak to then go back to Fly to get the Elegant Key, to then go to City of Tears to fight Soul Warrior, and then all the way back again. And because of that, you don't have Shade Soul, which goes through walls, and not being able to kill these guys through the walls, specifically in that place. This is a really rambly explanation of why they're so difficult, but you get what I'm talking about. Specifically to kill them in that D-Dark, like, gauntlet is really, really difficult. Really difficult. In fact, I would say these are up here. What's of them follies? maybe. I'll leave them there for now. They are really difficult enemies to deal with. Speaking of which, would you believe what you would think would be a Tick-Tick-like? Just a little crystal crawler boy is going up here as well. More so than any of these. Just under the folly, I think. And the reason being is the lasers that they shoot. These are the guys that crawl on the walls on the ascent up Crystal Peak. And not only is it annoying that they're crawling over the walls while you're trying to jump up, but the lasers are so difficult to deal with. If you mistime your ascent, or you get out of step with how you usually go up, you're getting hit by a laser. And they don't take nail damage. You've got to kill them with fireballs. If it's not a Shade Soul, they don't die. I don't know if you can kill them well with Vengeful Spirit. Awful to deal with. And the lasers are so glitchy. They hit you through walls and all sorts. You've really got to know how to deal with these. So, yeah, difficult. But not the one enemy that I said would be more difficult than this guy. How close are we? Who knows? The Miner Boys, we're still up here. We're definitely still up here. The axes are really... They throw the axe, which again, like the Moss Knight, is like an anti-air range. I've been playing Mortal Kombat, if you can't tell. And they have range on the swings, just the regular swings from the axe. I think they're very difficult to deal with. Equally, if not more so, more lasers. So these guys, I think these are too high. Move them down a little bit. They're quite easy to kill, I think. That was good. These are the guys that you will most likely find on the way up to Hallownest Peak, where you get the Pale Ore, that climb. And they're the ones that sort of walk fairly quickly and then stop and put the little crystal arm up and shoot lasers at you. Like a mini Enraged or Crystal Guardian. And I think they're really tough. The way I found to do it, to get up cleanly, was that I had like exact amounts of soul that I would use to make sure that I had a fireball specifically available for each one. And then I would know that I could fireball at certain times to kill certain ones, and that I wouldn't have to try and kill this guy with a nail, because it's not easy at all to kill these guys with to kill these enemies with nail attacks. Those two. Okay, into the forgotten, or the upgraded Forgotten Crossroads enemies, the infected Crossroads enemies, starting with the Furious Vengefly. Absolutely livid, this guy. That was a poem I concocted without realizing. Tough to deal with. Yeah. Fortunately, there's only one or two in an any percent run, but going back to Crossroads at any point is just the worst. Quite frankly, it's awful going back to Crossroads when it's infected. There's a point in the speed run where if you follow the sort of main any percent route, you get to Crystal Peak after doing one of the Dreamers. I think it's Watcher Nights. You then go to Crystal Peak after that. And there are 3 of these guys that you need to, when you come out of the Crossroads Stag Station is the word I'm looking for. You have to like jump up past 3 of these, and it's really, really difficult. Yeah. Dislike. And are these run killers? Maybe not. Slightly easier to deal with than these guys, I think. These are the ones that are floating around in the big room in Crossroads, and they drip stuff. Casually, not super difficult to deal with. in a no-hit run, you can either just bomb straight down and hope for the best, or what I did was take them out individually one by one, because the drips, they travel all the way down the screen and you cannot see where they're coming from, which makes them very difficult to deal with. So I think one of the most difficult enemies in an any percent run, these two, which is annoying because it's right near the end of the run as well. These explodey boys and spitty boys, less so. I think we're down here, probably around there for both of them. If you've got range, they're a non-entity. You just fireball them and they've gone. Just don't try and kill them with a nail. That's pretty much it. Deep Nest creatures now. So the Dirt Carver are the ones that pop up out the ground. As long as you don't hang around too much in Deep Nest, probably here. As long as you don't hang around too much in Deep Nest, you'll be fine. They die quite easily. One fireball or a couple of nail swings and you'll be able to deal with them. In casual play, however, a major pain. Makes Deep Nest awful. One of the many reasons that makes Deep Nest awful. The Hatcher is the thing near the Trampas, which spits more of these guys out. And it's the best place to farm Geo, incidentally, if you're trying to get the Unbreakable Charms. I think quite difficult. We're around these guys. Just because if you hang around trying to fight them, again, good strategy to hit them with spells, bad strategy to try and kill them with a nail. But in general, not too bad. I think I'll put them about the same. These guys are rough as well. Maybe a bit somewhere in between, maybe. They're in the normal bits of Deep Nest. Again, if you're not hanging around, not too bad. But the arena, just before you rescue Zote from, actually not too far from Trampas, is not fun. So I think they're probably about in the same place. Weird that enemies of the same area ended up generally together. The rest of the denizens of Deep Nest now. So this little boy is, or girl, is the one that just kind of crawl across the floor. Not too big of a deal. As long as you know where they are. A bit of a pain if you don't. Bit of a pain if you don't, but pretty easy to deal with. These guys are the ones that cling onto the walls and spit things at you. Beast's Den is where they are most prevalent. And there is one just going towards Distant Village that is easy to deal with if you've got Shade Soul. You can shoot it through the wall, but a pretty big pain if you don't. I remember Marty did the No Geo spent run. This guy was a pain in that. And the low percent runs, because you don't have Shade Soul, make this guy quite difficult to deal with. So, yeah, annoying. The ones on the way up to Galeon as well, I've lost a couple of runs too. There's two on the wall near each other. Not fun. The Weavers, they're probably my least favourite enemy casually, because they just spring out of the foreground. I think they're definitely up here. Yeah, we're around here. Not fun. Dislike whoever invented those things. And Devouts as well. We're way up here. Yeah, worse. Not quite run killer, but you do have to have specific strategies to deal with them. And trying to kill them with a nail is nearly impossible. Killer. No, I can't bring myself to do it. This guy's down here with his brethren. They're the ones that are hanging around Ancient Basin, along with your Morlocks. What are they actually called? Morlurk, Lesser Morlock, Morlurks, and then Brooded Morlock, which is in Crossroads, weirdly. These guys are not fun. Definitely threatening. Probably right up here, actually. Yeah, so there's... You don't see these a lot. They're only over to the left, the sort of top left of Ancient Basin where the Pale Ore is. I don't think they exist anywhere else. You get them in the Colosseum. I think there's one or two in the Colosseum fights. But they're not fun. Again, it's that mixture of the anti-air ranged attacks, because they can spit at you, and the quick short-range attacks. Definitely a theme with the difficult enemies. Definitely. Same. These guys are a pain as well. Huge pain. Very, very specific strats needed. So they are primarily, I think exclusively, right before you get to Broken Vessel. Big pain to deal with. Big pain. Lost lots of runs to these. You are passive. The little blobs, they do appear in the Broken Vessel fight and in Lost Kin. And there's a couple of them scattered around. It's weird because these are essentially the same things as the Follies. For all intents and purposes. But I just don't... Be a little bit further up. Yeah, we're talking like here. I just don't have the same issues with them as I do with Follies, probably due to placement, the amount of them. If there was like a room absolutely chock full of them constantly spawning, like there is with the Follies at the, after the Soulmaster fight, then yeah, they'd be a problem, but they're not. And I don't think they spawn as frequently in the Broken Vessel fight as these do in the Soul Warrior fight, so could be wrong. Boofly, are these enemies? They're little appers, so I think I'll keep them down with the non-event crew. Yeah, it being next to the crystal one makes sense. Just don't fall into them and you'll be fine. Now, for I think most people, this would be straight in at number 1. They are difficult to deal with. Have I lost runs to them? Yes. Have I lost a lot of runs? No. In the Colosseums, these are very, very difficult. I think that's where their reputation comes from. Because dealing with them at the same time, the part of the Colosseum, I think it's the third one, where you have like the multi-leveled platforms, and there's like these guys and the upgraded Vengeflies attacking you at the same time. I think that's where the difficulty for these guys comes from. I think actually in the base game, they're fairly easy to deal with. They die to 1 Shade Soul, which is huge. And as long as you can recognize when they're going to attack, they're not super difficult to deal with. So I don't think they are as bad. They're not cool, but I think they're easier to deal with than what I think is the worst enemy in the game, which we still haven't got to. There is one, I promise, but it's not part of the last bit. Combs are annoying. Combs are definitely annoying. We are around here, I think. Yeah, there's loads of them. They're finicky. I got hit once because 2 of them were perfectly lined up one behind the other. So I killed one, and the one behind it didn't die, and then jumped into me. Not cool. Yeah, I don't like these at all. In fact, yeah, that feels better. Quick as well. Even more so. Hey, Devids. Time to say my opinion. I mean, that's what I want. That's what these are all about. The big cones are more difficult to deal with. Around here somewhere. They are tough. They are really tough, actually. But there's not that many of them. And there's only one part of the game where I think more than one of them would be on screen at the same time. Unless you ran through the whole... You know, between, like... The majority of them are between the... Well, like where Markoth is, and then the nail at Cyclone Slash, isn't it? Cyclone Slash? Or Dash Slash. Sorry, Dash Slash. That's where it is. And then you go all down and round to get Quick Slash. That's where the majority of them are. And there is a point where I think 3 of them could be on top of you at the same time, which is definitely not a good thing. But spells wreck them. You can get a good pattern of them like jumping over you. Are they worse than Morlix? No. I think that's right. Yeah, I think that's right. Right, the Mimic. The Mimic, I think the Mimic... I don't know why, but I have a feeling I remember the Mimic being tougher than it actually is. I checked its health, because I thought it had quite a lot of health. And it's like 25. Let me just check it again. Oh, it is 45. Okay, that's a considerable amount of health. And it moves really quickly. I think that makes it deserve a place up in threatening. Again, for no hit runs. Unless you're 112%, why would you fight a Mimic? Or there's one in the Colosseum, but by that point you're pretty well equipped. One nail swing and a fireball will do it. However, if you are in Deep Nest and you stumble across the group, they're very, very scary. Like if you just smash all of the grub pots, I think you're just dead. So yeah, I feel that's justified up there. Bees. This guy's down here, and he's not really any harm to anyone. They're just cute little bees. However, the Hive Soldier and Hive Guardians, I think, are very difficult. Especially Mr. Kamikaze. Well, both of them, right? Because this one, the big boy, does 2 masks of damage, which is not something that I've spoke about, actually. Until now, that I'm realizing. I think things that do 2 masks of damage automatically, I mean, we've ended up with them mostly up here. 1, 2, and now 3. Missed any more, have I? Don't think so. Except the exploding. Oh yeah, exploding things here. They like take off and then bounce around, which can be a pain to not get smashed in the chops. Big boy up here, smaller boy here somewhere. It feels low. That feels better. Okay. Bees successfully placed. And the Hive Husk. I think this is called Hive Husk. Yes, it is. Husk Hive. Not super threatening. Just explode it. We're like Probably more than to compare it. That's the other enemy that makes enemies. We've got a little cluster of them actually. I think it's the most difficult of the enemy that makes other enemies. But this thing itself, not that threatening. Into Queen's Gardens. Now we're looking at proper enemies. Look what's left. Oh my goodness. Oh, quick note. Soul Warrior is here because he's in... I mean, he's a boss. I did rank him in my hardest bosses tier list, which you should absolutely go watch. I'll put a link. So if you want to see what I think about him, go watch that. I'll not be ranking him in this list. These ones are the sort of the ones that shoot spikes out the backs. You know, they've got like orange spikes that come out of them, which I think are tough. I think these are very tough, more so than these. We are looking up here. Easily dealt with, but again, if you're not using your nail, if you're using it, they're easily dealt with if you're not using your nail. If you are using your nail, you're going to get spiked in the face, most likely. And I think they're the only enemy that can hurt you, like, after their death. Not on death, but afterwards, because they stay, if you don't completely destroy them, they stay in like a little spike ball. I can't think of any other enemy that does that. Some, like, you kill them and then they explode. But none, like, nothing else has a, like, lingering effect. Do they? I can't think of any anyway. Okay. For those of you that said the frogs were the worst, congratulations. These hoppy little buggers are, in my opinion, and I think in the opinion of most people who know this game and have gone anywhere near them, the worst enemies in the whole game. Because when you go to them, which is in one very specific place on the way to Marmu, they are awful to get past. There are so many of them. They move in random directions. They can hit you from off screen, and there's just the sheer number of them makes them really, really difficult to deal with. Really difficult, because you don't have enough soul to take them all out. You have to nail hit some of them. And, which is something I've not touched on in this either, there's two different types of enemy. There's obviously a lot of different types of enemy, but there's two different types of enemy in this specific category, and that is enemies that don't respawn when you leave the room, and enemies that do respawn when you leave the room. And these frogs respawn. They're Loodles is their actual name. I always call them frogs. They respawn when you leave the room, and they're on two screens going into where Marmu is. Potentially more, actually. And you can't, like, kill a couple of them, go away, refill your soul, and come back again. You have to get all the way across in one go. And it's not good. It's very not good. We'll get onto it, but their Colosseum counterparts are also possibly the worst part of Colosseum 3 as well. But we'll come on to that very, very soon. So if you said Loodles, worst enemy, well done. Now, also on the high end of the scale are these two types of mantids, I believe is the plural. Very not fun to deal with. That arena, I think I have to put these in Runkiller as well. I'm going to grab both of them. That arena on the way through Queen's Gardens is horrible. All of Queen's Gardens is really, really tough. We're above them, probably above the Floor Follies. These even more so. Yeah. Queen's Gardens is really, really difficult in a no-hit. And super difficult casually. Oh my goodness. Thinking about Queen's Gardens casually, actually. With all the spikes everywhere. That like bottom bit, I will. Yes, I will, Louis. That bottom bit that goes across the south portion of Queen's Gardens, where you've got there's the little floating boys and these mantises, and then the platforms that if you stand on for too long they drop, and everything else is spikes around it. That is so difficult. Really, really difficult. Yeah. And these move super like randomly as well. Not good. Right, the Colosseum upgrades and exclusives now, starting with the armored or sharp boulder. Not super easy. Take care, Livy. Enjoy. Not super easy to deal with. And have quite a lot of health. Don't die to one fireball, which I think is the big thing with making enemies more difficult. So I reckon we're around there somewhere. The Vengeflies, though, not much more difficult than their counterparts in the base game. Yeah, I think at the top end is simple to the bottom end of caution. If you fight them early, I mean, you're going to get murked, but what are you doing there so early? These are the armored obels, I think. Battle obel. Around the same tier. Does their spit go differently? Does it go like north, south, east, west rather than the base game obels, which do it like on the diagonals? I can't remember. But I don't think they're that difficult to deal with. Obviously, looking at this objectively, these two are harder than the base game Aspid and the little crawlers that walk along the ground. But when you fight them, they're more threatening because these are towards the beginning of the game. Like the squid. How is the squid higher than its like upgraded version? It makes no sense. But what are you gonna do? I think it's justified that they're lower because you're relatively more powerful and everything's relative, right? Fieldy boy is not too bad. Not too bad at all, I think. Don't have too much trouble with them. I think the big guys are up there with difficult ones. Not quite threatening. They tend to die easily in the Colosseum, actually. Don't they have, like, half of them die to just, like, the platform going out from under them, and you can hit their own axes back at them. Yeah, that's fine. Flying ones, not too bad either. Probably around the same. Maybe a little lower. Like here somewhere. And then I think these ones are the difficult things to fight in the Colosseum. They have a lot more health. They move quicker than you expect, and they've really got range. So I think, yeah, I think around here for them. Now, the frogs. Not as... How can I not put them up here? I am going to put them there. The reason being, there's two different times you fight them. There's one earlier in, I think it's both Colosseum 3. One of them might be Colosseum 2. No, I think it's both Colosseum 3, where there's a lot of platforms scattered around that they're sort of jumping against, and there's a relatively safe spot in the bottom in the middle. But then there's a section later when you fight them where there is like one platform in the middle, and they're just spawning in and hopping around all over the place. And I think that specifically is the hardest part of Colosseum 3. Which is why they're going up there. Awful, evil creatures. These guys also not fun. Spawning in with the Soul Twisters. These are the guys that like spawn the lightning attack that Umu does in the Colosseum. Yeah, go away. Go away. You're nearly as bad as your brother. I've really not been keeping up with this. That was him. White Palace people, you're pretty much passive. In fact, you are. You bow to me as I walk past. These guys. Oh, are they run killer? Double damage. Yeah. We're up here. Double damage. Quick. Range. Melee. Boomerang weapon. Which is what the problem with this is. Yeah. All the way up there. The siblings in the abyss. Double damage. Lots of them. Gotta be careful on the climb. The more I think, the higher they go. Let's go there. Good. Right, last few. The Zotlins. Now, I feel like on an individual level, the Zotlins aren't that difficult to deal with, especially the explosion ones, because you just fireball across the screen and they all explode. But they do exist in the Zot fight, which I hate, so I'm going to put them all equally down here in threatening. And I think I'm going to do the same thing in caution, except the first guy. No, I'm going to put all of these in caution as well. This guy's actually quite difficult to deal with. I'm going to pop him up here. Yeah, I think that's fair. These guys are horrible. They are the big, like, guardians of Godhome, where you go through the waterways and through the pipes and stuff. I really don't like them. I seem to always get damaged by them when I run through. And then Pale Lurker can go in the same category as well. There we go. That's everything. If I zoom out, you can get them all on one page. There we go. Perfect. Well, that is it. That is all of the enemies in Hollow Knight. Good timing, Josh. That's all of the enemies in Hollow Knight ranked from least difficult to most difficult to deal with. And I think I am pretty happy with that list. I feel like I justified myself for most of them. YouTube, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed that tier list, there's like 3 others to go watch. So do it. Make sure you subscribe. Go watch stuff that I've made. Some of it's quite good. Make sure you like and comment and all that good stuff. And also, I have a second channel. If you like indie games, go check that out as well. There's like 9 calls to action. Just do one of them. That's all I'm asking. And I'll see you next time.